New CEO fired me for attending my grandpa's burial. Said I missed a team lunch. My boss fired me the day I got back from burying my grandfather. Fired. Just like that. Said I wasn't a team player. That I'd missed a crucial team lunch. A team lunch? While I was saying goodbye to the man who taught me everything, did they really expect me to choose potato salad over paying my respects? And then, the real reason came out. Not about potato salad at all. It was about money. Lots of it. Could you ever forgive someone for that? Hey, what's up everyone? Get ready for a wild ride, because today I'm spilling the tea on the worst thing that's ever happened to me at work. It's a story of betrayal, greed, and a whole lot of questionable decisions. Imagine getting fired for something ridiculous, like missing a team lunch. Now, imagine that lunch was held the same day you were burying your grandfather. Sounds petty, right? It gets so much worse. Turns out, my sudden dismissal was part of a much bigger, much dirtier scheme. Think forged documents, hidden agendas, and a cover-up that could land people in jail. So buckle up, hit that like button, and let's dive into this insane chapter of my life. You won't believe what I uncovered. The air in the office was thick with that pre-Monday morning dread. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to hum with a special kind of anxiety. I walked in, still feeling the hollow ache in my chest from the funeral. The scent of lilies and old wood still clung to my clothes. It had been a long few days, flying out to see him one last time. The service, the quiet drive back. All I wanted was to catch up on emails and ease back into the routine. I was an internal auditor at a mid-sized tech firm in Boise, a job I actually enjoyed most days. It was meticulous, detail-oriented, and oddly satisfying when you found that one tiny discrepancy that unraveled a whole mess. My desk was off, not noticeably, but the way the stack of files tilted, the pen slightly out of place. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible shift, but I knew it. I always knew. Then I saw Sarah, my direct supervisor, hurrying towards me, her face an odd mixture of sympathy and something else. Pity, maybe? "Hey," she said, her voice unusually soft. "Come into Mark's office for a sec. He wants to have a chat." Mark was the new CEO, a slick, polished guy who'd come in about 6 months prior, promising synergy and growth opportunities. Mostly, he just seemed interested in golfing and mandatory team-building exercises. I walked into his office, the glass walls making me feel exposed. He was sitting behind his large desk, his expression grim. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing to the chair opposite him. "Everything okay?" I asked, already feeling a knot forming in my stomach. He sighed dramatically, like he was carrying the weight of the world. "Look, I'm just going to be blunt. We've decided to let you go." I stared at him, completely stunned. "Let me go? What are you talking about? What did I do?" "It's not about what you did," he said, avoiding my gaze. "It's about team cohesion. You missed the team lunch last week. It's important to show you're committed to the company culture, and your absence, it was noticed." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "My grandfather died, Mark. I was burying him." He shrugged, a dismissive gesture that sent a jolt of anger through me. "We understand that family is important, but the team is also important. We need people who are fully engaged." "Fully engaged?" I repeated, my voice rising. "I've been here for 5 years. I've worked late nights. I've caught errors that saved the company thousands of dollars. And you're firing me because I missed a freaking team lunch?" He just looked at me, his face impassive. "The decision has been made. HR will be in touch regarding severance." Severance? That was it? 5 years of loyalty, dedication, and hard work. And I was being tossed aside like yesterday's coffee. I walked out of his office, my head spinning. The office lights seemed to buzz louder, the air heavier. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I just walked back to my desk, packed my things, and left. I couldn't even look at Sarah. What could she say? "Sorry your grandpa died, but also, potato salad is life?" I could not. I went home, numb. My husband, David, was waiting for me, his face etched with concern. "What happened? You're home early." I told him everything, the firing, the team cohesion excuse, the utter absurdity of it all. He wrapped his arms around me. "That's insane. I'm so sorry." He offered to order pizza. He poured me a glass of wine. He let me rant and cry until I was exhausted. I was so lucky to have him. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced, replaying the conversation with Mark, searching for any other reason, any other explanation. Something wasn't right. The team lunch thing was ridiculous, a paper-thin excuse. What was really going on? I had a habit of backing everything up on a separate drive, a paranoia that suddenly seemed justified. I searched for anything related to Mark, to Sarah, to any recent projects I'd been working on. Then I found it. A string of emails between Mark and a consultant named Tom, who was a friend of David. Tom had been brought in to streamline some of our financial processes. I hadn't worked directly with him, but I knew he had access to pretty much everything. The emails were about me, about my performance, my lack of commitment, my resistance to change. It was all carefully worded, but the implication was clear. They wanted me gone. But why? Could David have known? Was his friend involved in getting me fired? How could I not suspect this? What was my role in all of this? The Arkur. It was addressed to Mark from Tom with the subject line, Project Phoenix. The body of the email contained a single sentence. Ready to initiate. Project Phoenix. What did that mean? I scrolled through the rest of the emails, piecing together fragments of conversations, veiled threats, and coded messages. It was like trying to decipher a secret language, but I was starting to get the gist of it. They were planning something big, and they needed me out of the way. I knew I had to find out what Project Phoenix was. I knew I had to clear my name. And I knew I had to find out if David knew anything about this. The rain started, a cold, insistent drumming against the window. The office was silent except for the rhythmic clicks of keyboards and the low hum of the air conditioning. I was back in my old office, but not as an employee. I had called a friend who still worked there, pleaded my case, and convinced her to let me sneak in after hours. I told her it was about clearing my name, about uncovering something shady. I didn't tell her everything. I went straight to my old computer, the one they hadn't bothered to wipe clean. I knew they thought they had covered their tracks, but I was an auditor. I knew where to look. I started by checking the recent documents, the ones that hadn't been backed up. It was slow going, sifting through spreadsheets and presentations, most of it completely irrelevant. Then I found a folder labeled Vendor Management. Inside, there were invoices, contracts, and bank statements for several new vendors. Vendors I had never heard of. Vendors with names like Sunshine Consulting and Evergreen Solutions. Vendors that existed only on paper. The numbers were staggering, millions of dollars being funneled to these fake companies. It was a classic embezzlement scheme, but on a scale I had never seen before. And then I saw Tom's name. He was listed as the primary contact for Evergreen Solutions. My husband's friend, the consultant, was at the center of this fraud. My hands started to shake. How could he do this? How could he involve David's wife? I copied all the files onto a flash drive. I needed to get this information to the authorities, but I also needed to talk to David. I needed to know how much he knew. I walked out of the office into the cold night, the rain washing over me. I felt sick, betrayed, and utterly alone. The apartment was dark and quiet when I got home. David was asleep on the couch, a half-empty glass of wine on the coffee table. I watched him for a moment, his face peaceful and innocent. How could he be sleeping so soundly when my world was crumbling around me? I woke him gently. "David," I said softly, "we need to talk." He stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "What's wrong? What time is it?" "It's late," I said, "but this is important." I sat down beside him on the couch and told him everything I had found. The fake vendors, the stolen money, Tom's involvement. He listened in stunned silence, his face growing paler with each word. "I don't believe it," he said. "Tom would never do something like that. He's a good guy." "He's stealing millions of dollars, David," I said, my voice rising. "And he helped get me fired." "But why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why would he do that?" I didn't have an answer. I didn't know why he would do this, but I knew that he had. I showed him the files on the flash drive, the invoices, the contracts, the bank statements. He scrolled through them, his eyes widening in disbelief. I don't understand," he stammered. "I need to talk to him." "David, don't," I said, grabbing his arm. "He's dangerous. He's involved in something illegal." "I have to," he said, pulling away. "He's my friend. I need to know why." He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. I watched him go, my heart sinking. Was he really that naive? Did he really think he could talk Tom out of this? I spent the rest of the night pacing the apartment, waiting for David to come home. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant siren, sent a jolt of anxiety through me. He admitted it, he said, his voice flat. He admitted everything. I sat down heavily on the couch. What did he say? He said he needed the money, David said. He said he was in debt, that he had no choice. "And what about me?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What about getting me fired?" "He said he was sorry," David said. "He said he didn't want to hurt you, but he needed you out of the way so you wouldn't find out about the fraud." "Sorry," I repeated, my voice laced with bitterness. "Sorry isn't going to cut it, David. He stole millions of dollars, he ruined my career, and he betrayed your friendship. Sorry doesn't even begin to cover it." David looked at me, his eyes filled with guilt and shame. "I know," he said. "I know. I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "Did you really not?" I asked quietly. "Did you honestly not suspect anything?" He shook his head vehemently. "No," he said. "I swear, I trusted him. I thought he was my friend." I looked at him, trying to gauge his sincerity. I wanted to believe him, but a part of me couldn't help but wonder. Was he truly innocent, or was he somehow complicit in Tom's scheme? The seed of doubt had been planted, and I didn't know if I could ever fully trust him again. I handed over the flash drive and told them everything I knew. They were surprisingly receptive, launching an investigation immediately. Within a week, Tom was arrested, along with several other individuals involved in the fraud. Mark, the CEO, was also implicated. It turned out that Project Phoenix was the code name for a plan to embezzle millions of dollars from the company and funnel it into offshore accounts. They thought they were so clever. The company was in chaos, the stock price plummeting, the future uncertain. I was vindicated, my name cleared, but it didn't feel like a victory. The office was buzzing with activity. Police officers were everywhere, carting out boxes of documents, interviewing employees. The air was thick with tension and suspicion. I watched them from the outside, a ghost haunting the halls of my former life. The office lights felt dim, even during the day. The buzz was almost gone now. Sarah approached me, her face pale and drawn. "I had no idea," she said, her voice barely audible. "I swear, I didn't know what was going on." "I don't know if I believe you, Sarah," I said, my voice cold. "Please," she begged. "I wouldn't have let this happen if I had known." "You knew something was up," I said. "You saw the emails, you heard the conversations." She looked down at her feet, shamefaced. I thought they were just trying to streamline things. I didn't realize." I sighed. "It doesn't matter now, Sarah. It's too late." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, alone in the ruins of her career. I received a call from the police a few weeks later. Tom had agreed to cooperate with the investigation in exchange for a reduced sentence. He confirmed that Mark had been the mastermind behind the scheme, and that I had been fired specifically to prevent me from discovering the fraud. He also revealed something else, something that chilled me to the bone. He said that Mark had been planning to frame me for the embezzlement if I had gotten too close to the truth. They were going to make me the fall guy, destroy my reputation, and send me to prison. I shivered at the thought. I had been so close to losing everything. David and I had a long, difficult conversation. He was devastated by Tom's betrayal, but he was also racked with guilt. He felt responsible for what had happened to me, for bringing Tom into our lives. I should have known, he said. His voice choked with emotion. I should have seen the signs. It's not your fault, David, I said, taking his hand. You trusted him. You couldn't have known what he was capable of. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I believed that. I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive him for his naivete, for his blind trust in a man who had almost ruined my life. The tension between us had not gone. The trial was a media circus. The details of the embezzlement scheme were splashed across the headlines. The names of the accused paraded through the news. I was called to testify, forced to relive the humiliation of being fired, the betrayal of my husband's friend, the fear of being framed. Mark was eventually convicted on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to a long prison term. Tom received a lighter sentence for his cooperation. The company never fully recovered from the scandal. It was eventually acquired by a larger corporation, the employees scattered, the culture destroyed. I was offered my old job back, but I declined. I couldn't go back to that office, to those people, to that life. The thought of sitting at my old desk, under those buzzing fluorescent lights, filled me with dread. I had to move on. I decided to start my own consulting firm, specializing in fraud prevention. I used my experience to help other companies protect themselves from the kind of schemes that had almost destroyed me. It was hard work, building a business from scratch, but it was also incredibly rewarding. I was in charge of my own destiny. I was making a difference, and David and I worked through our issues, attending couples therapy and rebuilding our trust. It wasn't easy, but we were both committed to making our marriage work. He sold his car and gave the money to the victims of Tom's scams. He tried to make amends in any way he could. It took a long time, but I eventually forgave Tom, not for what he had done to me, but for what he had done to David. I realized that holding on to anger and resentment was only hurting me. One cold afternoon, I was driving down the highway to see my parents, and I saw Tom. He was working a highway repair job, orange vest glowing in the dusk. I slowed. I almost stopped. But I kept driving. I hoped he was safe. I hoped he learned his lesson. That was it. I had a successful business, a loving husband, and a newfound sense of purpose. I had emerged from the ashes of my old life, stronger and wiser. What would you have done? Could you have forgiven someone who betrayed you so deeply? Could you have moved on? Or would you have been consumed by anger and revenge? I want to hear your stories. I chose to clear my name, expose the truth, and rebuild my life on my own terms. I chose to forgive. So, tell me what you would choose. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more crazy stories. And please, share your own experiences in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear what you would do in my shoes. Thank you for listening. The rain was coming down in sheets as I drove away from the office. It matched the storm raging inside me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been so blind, so naive. How could I not have seen what was happening right under my nose? Was I really that trusting, or was I just stupid? I replayed the last few months in my head, searching for any clues, any hints that I had missed. There were the late nights Tom had been working, the hushed phone calls, the secretive meetings. I had just chalked it up to him being a busy consultant, trying to impress his new clients. There was the time David had come home with a new watch, a fancy Swiss-made thing that cost more than my car payment. He said Tom had given it to him as a gift, a thank you for helping him get the consulting gig at my company. I had thought it was odd, a little extravagant, but I hadn't questioned it. And there was the team lunch, the infamous team lunch. Sarah had seemed particularly insistent that I attend, even after I told her about my grandfather's passing. She had kept texting me, reminding me about the importance of team bonding and showing my support. Looking back, it was clear that she knew what was going to happen, that she was trying to make sure I was out of the office when they pulled the trigger. But still, a watch, a team lunch, it was the kind of thing that never made me think I was about to get axed. How would you feel if you'd gotten a watch like that? I pulled into my driveway, the wipers struggling to keep up with the downpour. I sat in the car for a moment, gathering my thoughts. I knew I couldn't let this defeat me. I had to fight back, clear my name, and expose the truth. I walked into the house, shaking off the rain. David was in the kitchen, making dinner. He looked up when I came in, his face etched with worry. "How did it go?" he asked, his voice hesitant. I sighed. "I gave the police the flash drive. They're launching an investigation." He nodded. "That's good. That's really good." But there was a distance in his eyes, a reserve that hadn't been there before. I knew that Tom's betrayal had shaken him to his core, that he was questioning everything he thought he knew about his friend, about himself. I walked past him and went to change. I couldn't get Sarah's face out of my mind. As soon as I could, I went back to the office to see if I could get any more files that would help prove my innocence. But I ran into her in the break room. "I just wanted to say again that I am sorry. So sorry. I didn't know what was going on." Sarah looked like she hadn't slept in a week, so as much as I hated her, I believed her. "Okay," I said, "but you have to help me. I need more files and you have to get them for me." She winced. "I'm not sure. I might get fired for helping." "I already got fired," I said. "It doesn't feel good. Either help me or scram." She scurried into Mark's old office and came out with an invoice folder. He was shredding these the night before he was arrested, but I grabbed them when he went to the bathroom. I thanked her, though a voice in the back of my head said she was only helping me now to make herself feel better. Is that too cynical? I felt like I was living in a fishbowl, my every move being scrutinized, my every word dissected. It was exhausting, stressful, and utterly terrifying. But I refused to back down. I refused to let Mark and Tom win. I refused to let them destroy my life. I focused on gathering evidence, building my case, and preparing for the inevitable legal battle. I hired a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Lisa, who believed in my innocence and was determined to fight for me. She grilled me for hours, asking me every possible question, challenging my assumptions, and preparing me for the tough questions I would face in court. I asked her if she had ever been betrayed before. She said it was the center of her field. "They're going to try to paint you as greedy, ambitious, and willing to do anything to get ahead," she warned me. "They're going to try to make you look like the bad guy." "But I'm not," I protested. "I'm the victim here." "I know that," she said. "But the jury doesn't. It's our job to convince them." The first trial was a disaster. The prosecution presented a compelling case, painting me as a disgruntled employee who had been passed over for a promotion and was seeking revenge. They introduced emails and memos that painted me in a negative light, exaggerating my mistakes and downplaying my accomplishments. The jury seemed to be buying it. I could see it in their faces, their skeptical glances, their lack of engagement. I felt like I was drowning, suffocating under the weight of their disbelief. I couldn't believe it. What would you have done? Lisa did her best to defend me, but she was fighting an uphill battle. The prosecution had done a masterful job of manipulating the evidence and playing on the jury's prejudices. In the end, the jury deadlocked. They couldn't reach a unanimous verdict, and the judge declared a mistrial. I was devastated. I had come so close, but I had failed. I felt like giving up, like retreating into the shadows and letting them win. But Lisa refused to let me quit. She reminded me that I had come too far, that I had too much to lose. "We can do this," she said, her voice firm. "We just need to change our strategy. We need to focus on the motive, on the money trail. We need to prove that Mark and Tom were the ones who benefited from the fraud, not you." The second trial was different. Lisa had a new strategy, a new approach. She focused on the evidence, on the facts, on the undeniable truth that I had been the victim of a conspiracy. She called witnesses who testified to my integrity, my work ethic, and my dedication to the company. She introduced new evidence that showed Mark's lavish spending habits and Tom's desperate financial situation. She painted a picture of two men who were driven by greed, who were willing to do anything to get their hands on money, even if it meant destroying someone's life. The jury listened intently, their faces thoughtful, their eyes focused. I could feel the tide turning, the skepticism fading, the belief growing. The closing arguments were electrifying. Lisa delivered a passionate plea for justice, reminding the jury of their duty to protect the innocent and punish the guilty. "This is not just about money," she said, her voice ringing with emotion. "It's about justice. It's about holding these men accountable for their actions. It's about sending a message that you can't destroy someone's life and get away with it." The jury deliberated for 3 days, 3 agonizing days of waiting, wondering, and praying. I sat in the courtroom, my heart pounding, my palms sweating. I couldn't breathe. The judge read the verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty." I burst into tears. Relief, joy, and gratitude washed over me. I had won. I had cleared my name. I had. David squeezed my hand, his eyes shining with pride. Lisa smiled at me, her face radiant. I had done it. I had survived. But the scars remained. I knew that I would never be the same, that I would always carry the memory of what had happened, the betrayal, the humiliation, the fear. But I also knew that I was stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever before. I had learned a valuable lesson about trust, about loyalty, and about the importance of fighting for what you believe in. I had lost my job, my reputation, and my faith in humanity. But I had gained something even more valuable, myself. And that was something that no one could ever take away from me. I'm so much better now, wouldn't you say? I remember the feeling of walking out of that courtroom, a free woman. The sun seemed brighter, the air fresher, the world more vibrant. People I barely knew were congratulating me, patting me on the back, telling me how brave I was. It was overwhelming, but also incredibly validating. For so long, I had felt like I was alone, fighting a battle that no one understood. Now, I was surrounded by support, by people who believed in me, by people who had seen the truth. But even with the victory, the doubt lingered. Had David really not known anything? I found myself watching him, scrutinizing his every move, listening to his every word. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't help it. The trust had been broken, and it was going to take time to rebuild. One evening, I was going through some old photos, sorting through the memories of our life together. I came across a picture of David and Tom, laughing, their arms around each other. They looked so happy, so carefree. It was a reminder of the bond they had shared, a bond that had been shattered by Tom's betrayal. A wave of sadness washed over me. I missed the old David. The David who was trusting and innocent. The David who believed in the goodness of people. But that David was gone, replaced by someone who was more cautious, more guarded, more aware of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. I put the photo down and went to find David. He was in the living room, reading a book. I sat down beside him on the couch. "I was looking at some old photos," I said softly. He looked up, his eyes wary. "Oh? I saw one of you and Tom," I said. He winced. "Yeah, I haven't been able to look at pictures of him lately." "Me neither." I sat in silence for a moment. Then I asked the question that had been nagging at me for weeks. "David, did you ever suspect anything? Did you ever see any signs that Tom was involved in something shady?" He hesitated, his face troubled. I don't know," he said. "Maybe looking back, there were some things that seemed a little off, but I didn't want to believe it. I trusted him. He was my best friend." "What kind of things seemed off?" I pressed. He sighed. He was always talking about money, about how he was going to make it big. He was always looking for opportunities, for get-rich-quick schemes. And he was always borrowing money from me, from other people. Did he ever pay you back? I asked. He shook his head. Not always. I just figured he was bad with money. I stared at him, my mind racing. Could he really have been so blind? Or was he deliberately avoiding the truth? David, I said, my voice firm, you need to be honest with me. Did you know about the money he borrowed? Because if he borrowed money to help finance his schemes, then you are an accomplice. He paled at that. No, I would never. I raised an eyebrow. I wasn't convinced. He said he kept on asking to borrow to help his mom with medical bills. That's all I knew. I looked into his eyes, trying to gauge his sincerity. I desperately wanted to believe him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still holding something back. I need to know everything, David, I said. Everything. No more secrets. No more lies. He nodded, his face filled with determination. Okay, he said. I'll tell you everything. I promise. He proceeded to tell me about all the times Tom had asked him for money, about the promises he had made, about the lies he had told. It was a painful conversation, but it was also cathartic. As he spoke, I could see the weight lifting from his shoulders, the guilt and shame slowly dissipating. By the time he was finished, He had been naive, yes, but he had not been complicit. He had been a victim, just like me. I'm so sorry, he said. His voice choked with emotion. I should have seen it. I should have known. I took his hand and squeezed it tightly. It's okay, I said. We can't change the past. We can only learn from it. My consulting business started to thrive. I was getting referrals from all over the city, from companies that had heard about my story and wanted my help in preventing fraud. I was good at what I did, and I was passionate about it. I knew what it was like to be a victim of fraud, and I was determined to protect others from experiencing the same pain and devastation. I hired a team of talented auditors and investigators, people who shared my commitment to integrity and excellence. We worked hard, we played hard, and we made a difference. I asked Lisa to handle all of our company's legal needs, and that helped me breathe a little easier, knowing that such a competent lawyer was in my corner. One day, I received a letter from Tom. It was a long, rambling letter, filled with remorse and regret. He apologized for what he had done, for the pain he had caused me and David. He said that he had made a terrible mistake, that he had been driven by greed and desperation, and that he was now paying the price for his actions. He asked for my forgiveness, but he said that he didn't expect it. He knew that he had broken my trust, and that it would take a long time to rebuild. I read the letter slowly, carefully, trying to decipher the sincerity behind the words. Was he truly sorry, or was he just trying to manipulate me again? I didn't know, but I did know that I was tired of carrying around anger and resentment. I had forgiven David, and I had forgiven myself. It was time to forgive Tom, too. Not for his sake, but for mine. I wrote him back a short, simple letter. I told him that I forgave him, that I hoped he could find peace, and that I wished him well. I didn't expect a response, and I didn't get one.